50 years ago, I sat across from a woman in my clinic in Oristano. She was 91 years old. She had walked there. Not shuffled, not been driven. Walked. She remembered the name of every patient I had treated in common with her late husband, who had also been a physician. She remembered the year, the season, the details. Her mind was a library with every book still on the shelf. I asked her what she ate for breakfast that morning. She looked at me like the question was almost too simple to answer. "Beans," she said, "olive oil, a little bread, the same thing she had eaten almost every morning for 70 years. I have been practicing medicine in Sardinia for over 5 decades. I have watched patients grow old. I have watched some of them lose everything, their memories, their names, the faces of their children. And I have watched others, like that woman, arrive at 90, 95, even past 100, with their minds completely intact. And after all these years, I am convinced the difference is not luck. It is not entirely genetics. It is, in very large part, what they put in their mouths every single day. Today, I am going to tell you about 3 specific foods. Not supplements, not powders, not anything you need a prescription for. Foods that are available in almost every grocery store on Earth, that the longest-living, sharpest-minded people in this region have been eating for generations, and that modern neuroscience is now beginning to understand at a molecular level. Foods that I personally recommend to my patients when they come to me worried about their memory, worried about what happened to their father or their grandmother. I'm worried that the same fog is beginning to settle over them. Before we go any further, if this kind of conversation is useful to you, please subscribe, like this video, and activate the notification bell. There are things every person over 50 should know about the aging brain, and we are only just beginning. Let me give you the science first, because I think you deserve to understand why these foods work, not just that they work. The brain is the most metabolically expensive organ in the human body. It represents roughly 2% of your body weight and consumes approximately 20% of your total energy. It is, in other words, an organ that is constantly working, constantly demanding, and constantly vulnerable. And the 2 things that destroy it most predictably over time are inflammation and oxidative stress. Inflammation in the brain, neuroinflammation as we call it, is not like the swelling you get from a sprained ankle. You cannot feel it. There is no pain, no redness, nothing external to warn you. But at the cellular level, the brain's immune cells, called microglia, begin to behave as though they are under constant attack. They release inflammatory signaling molecules. They begin damaging neurons that are perfectly healthy. They interfere with the synaptic connections that form memories. And they do this quietly, for years, sometimes decades, before any symptom appears. Oxidative stress works differently but just as destructively. Every cell in your body produces waste products when it generates energy, molecules called free radicals. In a healthy, well-nourished brain, antioxidant systems neutralize these molecules before they cause damage. But when the diet is poor, when certain nutrients are chronically absent, those free radicals accumulate. They damage cell membranes. They attack mitochondria, the energy-producing structures inside neurons. They accelerate the formation of amyloid plaques, the sticky protein deposits that are found in high concentrations in the brains of Alzheimer's patients. Now, here is what I want you to understand. These processes are not inevitable. They are not simply what happens when you get old. They are, in very significant part, the result of what you eat, or what you fail to eat, over the course of your lifetime. And the foods I am about to describe address both of these mechanisms directly, through pathways that have been studied in peer-reviewed research at institutions you would recognize. If you are still with me, I want to say something. In my 50 years of practice, I have never had a patient come to me and say, "I wish I had eaten worse." I have had many come to me too late. "Please stay until the end." The first food is one that many people in other parts of the world have begun to dismiss, or to eat only occasionally, as though it were old-fashioned or inconvenient. Here in Sardinia, it has never gone out of fashion because the people who grew up eating it watched their grandparents think clearly at 95, and they made the connection without needing a scientific journal to tell them. I am talking about extra virgin olive oil. Not olive oil, not light olive oil. Extra virgin, cold-pressed, from the first pressing of the fruit. The distinction matters enormously, and I will explain why in a moment. Extra virgin olive oil contains a compound called oleocanthal. It was formally identified by researchers at the Monell Chemical Senses Center in Philadelphia in 2005, though the people of this island had been consuming it for thousands of years without knowing its name. Oleocanthal is a natural anti-inflammatory molecule. Its mechanism of action is remarkably similar to ibuprofen. It inhibits the same COX-1 and COX-2 enzymes that ibuprofen targets. But unlike ibuprofen, you are not taking a pill. You are consuming it in a food that also contains polyphenols, vitamin E, and oleic acid in a matrix that your body has evolved over millennia to absorb and use. But what makes oleocanthal specifically relevant to the brain is a study published in the journal ACS Chemical Neuroscience in 2013. Researchers at the University of Louisiana found that oleocanthal enhanced the clearance of amyloid beta from the brain, the precise protein that accumulates in Alzheimer's disease. It did this by increasing the production of two proteins responsible for transporting amyloid out of brain tissue. The brain, in other words, was better able to clean itself. A larger study, the Predimed trial, which followed over 7,000 participants across Spain over nearly 5 years, found that a Mediterranean diet supplemented with extra virgin olive oil was associated with a 53% reduction in the risk of cardiovascular events. The brain health implications are direct. Vascular health is brain health. Every small stroke, every moment of reduced blood flow, every damaged vessel wall is a step toward cognitive decline. The critical detail is the quality. Refined olive oils are processed with heat that destroys oleocanthal and degrades polyphenols. You need to taste the bitterness, feel the slight peppery burn at the back of your throat when you swallow it. That sensation is the oleocanthal. If your olive oil is completely tasteless and mild, it has been processed, and the most important compounds are largely gone. 4 tablespoons per day is what the research supports. Not drizzled as an afterthought, used generously as the primary fat in cooking and dressing. Now, before I tell you about the second food, I want to ask you to subscribe, like this video, and activate the notification bell. Understanding what protects the brain is one of the most important things a person can do, and it costs you nothing but a few minutes of attention. The second food is one that has been eaten in this region for at least 3,000 years. Archaeological evidence of its cultivation on this island dates to the Bronze Age. And yet in modern nutritional culture it has been attacked, questioned, accused of causing inflammation, of raising cholesterol, of being somehow dangerous. The people who said these things were not looking at the right evidence. I am talking about legumes. Specifically, the kind of slow-cooked, whole legumes, fava beans, chickpeas, lentils, cannellini, that form the foundation of the traditional Sardinian diet. Let me tell you what legumes do inside the brain, step by step. First, they are the most significant dietary source of something called resistant starch and soluble fiber. Compounds that your stomach cannot digest, but that your gut microbiome metabolizes into short-chain fatty acids, particularly one called butyrate. Butyrate is not a word most people know, but neuroscientists are paying extraordinary attention to it right now. It crosses the blood-brain barrier. It acts as a histone deacetylase inhibitor, which means it regulates gene expression in brain cells in ways that reduce neuroinflammation. A 2021 study published in Nutrients found that butyrate supplementation reduced neuroinflammatory markers and improved cognitive outcomes in animal models of Alzheimer's disease. But you do not need a supplement. 1 cup of cooked lentils produces measurably more butyrate precursors in the gut than almost any other food on Earth. Second, legumes contain extraordinarily high concentrations of folate. Folate is a B vitamin that is essential for a process called methylation, the biochemical mechanism by which your body regulates homocysteine levels in the blood. Elevated homocysteine is one of the most consistent and well-replicated risk factors for cognitive decline and Alzheimer's disease that exists in the literature. A study published in the New England Journal of Medicine found that patients with the highest homocysteine levels had nearly double the risk of developing Alzheimer's compared to those with normal levels. Folate, along with B6 and B12, directly lowers homocysteine. You legumes deliver more folate per gram than almost any other food outside of leafy vegetables. Third, and this is the finding that I find most remarkable, legumes have one of the lowest glycemic indexes of any food category. Blood glucose spikes cause direct neurological damage. The brain cannot store glucose. It relies on a steady, regulated supply. When blood sugar spikes and crashes repeatedly over years and decades, the resulting insulin resistance begins to affect the brain directly. Some researchers have proposed calling late-stage Alzheimer's disease type 3 diabetes because of the degree to which insulin signaling in brain tissue is disrupted in affected patients. Legumes, by releasing glucose slowly and steadily, protect against this mechanism specifically. Here in Sardinia, the minestrone is not a side dish. It is the meal. And the beans are not a garnish. They are the point. This is not poverty food or peasant food. This is, we now understand, precision nutrition for the aging brain. The third food is the one that surprises people most. Not because it is exotic. It is not. You have certainly eaten it before. But because most people have never been told, specifically, why it belongs in this conversation about dementia prevention, it is walnuts. A single walnut half, if you look at it closely, looks remarkably like a human brain. This is coincidence, not prophecy. But it is a coincidence that I have always found difficult to ignore. Here is the science. Walnuts are the only tree nut with a meaningful concentration of alpha-linolenic acid, a plant-based omega-3 fatty acid. The brain is approximately 60% fat by dry weight. The membranes of every neuron you have, billions of cells, are composed largely of fatty acids. The quality of those membranes, their flexibility, their permeability, their ability to support the passage of signals between cells, is directly determined by the quality of the fats you consume. Diets chronically low in omega-3 fatty acids produce stiffer, less functional neuronal membranes. Diets rich in omega-3s maintain membrane fluidity and support faster, more efficient synaptic transmission. But the omega-3 content alone is not the whole story. A landmark study from UCLA, published in the Journal of Nutrition, Health and Aging in 2015, analyzed data from over 4,000 adults and found that adults who consumed walnuts performed significantly better on 6 of 9 cognitive tests, including those measuring memory, concentration, and information processing speed. The association was dose-dependent. People who ate more walnuts performed better, and it held after adjusting for age, sex, race, education, body mass index, smoking, and physical activity. Walnuts are also one of the richest dietary sources of polyphenols, specifically L-glutanins, which gut bacteria convert into a compound called urolithin A. Urolithin A has been shown in research published in Nature Medicine to stimulate mitophagy, the cellular process by which damaged mitochondria are cleared and replaced. Since mitochondrial dysfunction is one of the earliest and most consistent findings in the neurons of Alzheimer's patients, this is not a trivial pathway. You are eating a food that helps your brain cells take out their own trash. 30 grams per day, approximately a small handful, is the amount used in most of the relevant studies. Not a cup, not a bowl, a handful. Eaten raw, unroasted, unsalted. My oldest patients, the ones who are still writing letters at 93, still arguing passionately about politics at 97, still calling their children by the right names at 101, they do not eat walnuts as a snack food. They eat them the way they eat everything, deliberately, as part of a meal, with olive oil nearby and beans already on the stove. At this point, let me be precise about what I am claiming and what I am not. I am not telling you that eating these 3 foods will guarantee you will never develop dementia. Dementia is a complex condition with genetic, environmental, and metabolic contributors that science does not yet fully understand. What I am telling you is this. Of all the modifiable risk factors that the research currently supports, diet, sleep, physical activity, cardiovascular health, social engagement, diet may be the most actionable. You can change what you eat tomorrow morning. You cannot change your genes. The mechanisms I have described, oleocanthal-clearing amyloid, butyrate-reducing neuroinflammation, folate-lowering homocysteine, omega-3s, maintaining membrane fluidity, urolithin A, supporting mitochondrial health, these are not speculation. These are peer-reviewed findings from research institutions around the world. The evidence is not perfect. It never is in nutritional science. But it is consistent, it is biological plausible, and it is pointing in one direction. If you found value in this conversation, please subscribe, like this video, and activate the notification bell. There is so much more to discuss. I want to leave you with something practical. Not a complicated meal plan, not a list of superfoods you have never heard of. Just this. Tomorrow morning, take 4 tablespoons of real, bitter, peppery extra virgin olive oil and use them in your breakfast, on bread, on vegetables, on eggs, however you eat. At lunch or dinner, include half a cup of cooked legumes. Lentils are the easiest because they require no soaking and cook in 20 minutes. And sometime during the day, eat a small handful of raw walnuts, 30 grams, the size of a small fist. Do that every day for 30 days. Then ask yourself whether you feel different, whether your thinking feels clearer, whether the afternoon fog, that heaviness that many people in their 50s and 60s have simply accepted as normal aging, has changed. You do not need to move to Sardinia. You do not need to know anyone who is 100 years old. You need to understand that the people who have lived longest and thought clearest in this region did not do so because of a single miracle food or a supplement someone sold them. They did so because every single day, without thinking about it as medicine, they ate things that were keeping their brains clean, energized, and protected. That is what I have spent 50 years learning from them, and now you know it too. If this reached you, if something in what I said made you think differently about what is on your plate, please subscribe, like this video, and activate the notification bell. The brain you are protecting is the one that makes every other part of your life possible. Take care of it.